reward. A bygone age, summed up by Emily Post.
Remember long ago when I myself was no more than a child, we suspected a certain aunt of ours of using rouge. It was wicked. Oh, Cousin Bertie rouges. Oh, yes, she does. And we stooped around in her room looking for a rouge box or something, and we found finally some red roses, very cheap red roses, in a top bureau drawer. We pinched them and the color came off, and we said, she rouges, and it was wicked. That was the idea of wickedness long ago.
Standards may alter slightly. Times change. Innocently, gradually, she has changed the morality of a nation without even being aware, perhaps, that she was doing it. She may be mother or movie queen, debutante or college dean, housewife or working girl. But whatever her title, she is the world's most varied, puzzling, and exciting creature, the American woman in the 20th century. Thou shalt bring forth children. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. This is the pride and sole province of womanhood, when from their triumphant moment of pain comes life. If she is a girl, this squalling ball of life has entered a puzzling world. The rules that shaped her mother's life will change in the course of hers, as they have without stop for more than 60 years since the turn of the century, when a woman held sway over half the world. England's awesome pillar of respectability, Queen Victoria, sets the standard for an age of elaborate manners and high-minded morality. But in 1901, the 20th century begins. Victoria dies. Victoria's rigid code of behavior will give way to a sophisticated morality epitomized by England's new king, Edward VII, a playboy prince. In America, society of the day is known for its genteel respectability. The specifications for propriety are rigid, especially for a woman. She may not smoke, and her strongest drink is a sip of wine. She can never discuss human anatomy and blushes at the mention of a kiss. In short, a good woman is expected to be brainless, spineless, sexless. As the Edwardian spirit takes hold, however, young American girls cautiously begin to defy convention, expanding bit by bit the cramped confines of their tightly corseted world. The eligible young lady of 1905 has a ready-made prototype created by a magazine illustration. The Gibson Girl. She captures the essence of what the American woman wants to be. Fresh, willowy, beautiful, and capable of reducing her suitors to manageable size with ready wit and sharp tongue.
Shall we talk or dance?
I'm so tired. Let's dance.
I sometimes wonder whether all those things you said to me were true.
What difference does it make? We both believe them.
Young man, have you been trying to kiss my daughter?
No, sir. I've been trying not to.
You're so awkward in your lovemaking that sometimes I'm suspicious.
Of what?
That you may be sincere.
When the Gibson Girl marries, she looks forward to a bright future. Magazine ads of 1905 proclaim that housework is no longer drudgery. Gas stoves do away with that messy, smoky wood burner. The revolving wheel all-steam metal washer allows you to do other work while the clothes are being washed. The American woman finds herself inundated by work-saving gadgetry and the products of a new technology. Leisure time is an unfamiliar luxury, but now the machine makes possible a break in her routine. Of all the inventions, none excites the American housewife as much as the Nickelodeon, where she finds a stimulating world of entertainment for just 5 cents. To a Steinway's maudlin clatter, the flickering screen becomes a crystal mirror of the fashions, manners, and morals of the day. Writes one moralist, men want a girl who has not rubbed off the peach blossom of innocence. A woman, Mary Pickford, is the first big movie star. She is the personification of purity and goodness, the image a nation desires for its girls, America's sweetheart. The perennial child on screen is in reality a shrewd businesswoman, the delight of feminists who claim that American women should be independent, financially, morally, and spiritually. But to women limited by custom to careers as teachers, if they have the background, or social workers, if they have the stamina, or nurses, if they can obtain the training, independence is a puzzling and vaguely disturbing concept. For the poor, there are jobs, but not independence. In 1905, 1 million women work in factories for $8 a week or less. Their labor is demeaning, the hours incredibly long, and factory conditions are dangerous. The nation's social conscience is finally pricked by a tragedy, the Triangle Factory fire. The dead are lined up on crude stretchers in the street. 146 victims, most of them women. Outrage triggers a wave of protest. Organizations like the Literary Teacups of Fargo, the Thursday Morning Club of Denver, suddenly change character. They take up causes instead of books. Women's suffrage, women's right to vote, arrest to plead their cause. Teddy Roosevelt gives them uses suffrage as a Republican campaign issue in 1916. Suffragette demonstrations disrupt the election campaign and lead former President Grover Cleveland to say, sensible women do not want to vote. Relative positions to be assumed by man and woman were assigned long ago by an intelligence higher than ours. In 1917, the suffragette movement is sidetracked when America plunges into World War I. War, writes reporter Vera Britton, is essentially the expression of masculine aims and methods. It is hostile to women's social and biological values. But nevertheless, Mary Pickford sells war bonds, and America's sweetheart in her own way symbolizes the alien world of war, private domain of men. 8.5 million women are employed in America's war effort. In a letter to a doughboy overseas, a young factory worker writes, I know it seems funny, but I like the job I'm doing, even though it's dirty work and hard. I never earned my keep, but now that I do, I feel a little more important than I ever have before. The assumption that women are fit only for the home is being dispelled. A way of life is crumbling. The war is over, the Yanks are home, and the once shy Gibson girl greets her soldier with a boisterous rapture she's never displayed before. To the surprised doughboy, the words of a popular song have a new and startling meaning. How you gonna keep 'em down on the farm? Women are back on the streets pleading their suffrage cause, and for the first time, they have sentiment going their way. President Wilson tells Congress, we cannot reject this measure in ignorant defiance of what a new age has brought forth. With suffragettes lining the Capitol steps, the suffrage amendment is signed on June 4th, 1919. Born out of a hunger for recognition and independence, nurtured by 2 chaotic decades of change, the movement had grown into an unstoppable force. For the followers of Carrie Chapman Cott and Harriet Stanton Blatch, Susan B. Anthony and Lita Stokes Adams, the battle is done. In the 1920 presidential elections, the American woman possesses the right to cast her ballot, express her opinion on the affairs of the nation. And as she does, she marks the end of an era. Women have planted themselves firmly in a world once reserved for men. Never again will she be ordered to leave the table when brandy is served and retire for a round of woman talk. Never again will a husband say, that's not for a woman to think about. How long will it be, many wonder, before women might even be seen in public smoking cigarettes? March, 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 you army of the Lord. Smash the swinging doors and crush the curse of barleycorn. The American woman in 1920 takes on another crusade, prohibition. And Carrie Nation couldn't ask for anything more. Morality triumphs on July 16th, 1920. Temperance becomes the law, and demon rum is banished from the land. Prohibition, peace, prosperity are key words for 1920 America. The best years, it is said, are yet to come. But the fashions and manners of a nation are quietly, subtly changing, the direct result of prohibition and prosperity. In the mainstream of American life, however, the optimistic calm remains unbroken. Among the first who sense the new era are the girls who flood the country's colleges. A president of Yale once declared, women were mentally unfit for higher education. Now, in the 20s, of every 7 doctorates is earned by a woman. Tomorrow, they will be the flappers, the jazz babies, the flaming youth. They will read of themselves in the pages of F. Scott Fitzgerald and know that the world into which they will graduate is theirs to shape. The jazz age has suddenly arrived, and the American woman, caught in a crumbling morality, stages a deliberate revolt. Neck becomes her newest verb. The petting party, her #1 indoor sport. She's a flapper now, and flap she does. Women express their defiance in a variety of ways, sane and insane, all unmistakable celebrations of their newfound freedom. No part of man's domain remains sacred. Restraint is out of style. The emancipated woman is everywhere. It is an epidemic of frivolity, and those who succumb seem determined to mock every tradition, including modesty and good taste. Less foolish and more significant is the rise of women in sports. Already man's rival in sex and society, the female athlete carries woman's challenge to the playing fields of a nation. And serious competitors, such as the young Babe Dietrichson, become proud new symbols of woman's freedom. Always a barometer of change, the world of fashion quickly reflects the American woman's revolt. Camouflage is suddenly out of style, and the corset all but disappears. Skirts shoot up, stockings are silk. Women are slimmer, breasts are flatter. Rayon undies the order of the day, woolies a thing of the past. The boyish bob now becomes the badge of freedom. Young, everyone cuts their hair. Even Mary Pickford, whose curls were symbols of innocence for 20 years, falls victim to the tempo of a changed America. But Mary's brand of puppy love is passé. Moviegoers seek a new excitement and find it in a brash young star named Clara Bow, the girl with it. The it girl is the image of her time. Alive, young, sexually free. She has that indefinable something. Mary Louise Cecilia Guinan has it. She calls herself Texas, calls her customers suckers, and holds court in her Manhattan speakeasy.
I'll wave and swear and tear my hair because I'm going to kill that bum that wrote that song entitled California, Here I Come.
Peaches Browning has it too, and at 15, her daddy makes her the darling of the tabloids. It is also the bittersweet verse of Edna St. Vincent Millay, burning her candle at both ends, and the effortless form of Helen Wills, who captivates the public and earns 10 world titles. There is Ziegfeld star Fanny Brice, who ages in reverse as the unforgettable Baby Snooks. Expatriate author Gertrude Stein, whose phrase, the lost generation, becomes the epitaph of the jazz age. The most famous pair of legs on Broadway, those of Marilyn Miller, are lovely proof that gentlemen prefer blondes, but marry brunettes, like butter on a sullen August morning. And 14 and a half hours later, becomes the first woman to swim the English Channel, almost 2 hours faster than any man. Her triumphal homecoming is one of the wildest parties in New York's history. The city gives her its heart and discovers that welcoming heroines is fun. Ruth Elder's attempt to fly the Atlantic fails, but hero-happy New York mounts a parade in her honor. Lady evangelist Amy Semple McPherson survives a conspicuous kidnapping, and Vanity Fair magazine nominates her for Oblivion. But Sister Amy remains the idol of the faithful.
God bless you, one and all. Won't you sing one of your temple choruses for me?
Of them all, no one has more it than exotic Pola Negri, and she has Valentino. Millions of American women avidly follow the brief summer of their well-publicized romance. To the public, Valentino's frank lovemaking fulfills their need for an idol whose passion can match their own. As no other man before or since, he becomes the love object of his times. Says Valentino himself, women do not love Rudolph Valentino. They are infatuated with what he stands for. They are in love with love. On August 23rd, 1926, Rudolph Valentino is dead. Tens of thousands line the streets of New York to pay homage. But what begins as grief becomes a grotesque spectacle of public hysteria. The bizarre scene captures the frenetic spirit of the American woman in the 1920s. Shouting, shoving, screaming, she caps the flapper age. It's the morning after the decade before. The party ended at precisely 3:30 p.m. on October 24th, 1929. Black Thursday, the day that Wall Street collapsed, the day the Depression began. The age of fun is finished. There are 11 million unemployed. For the families of a nation, the common terms food, clothing, shelter take on a new importance. A feeling of apprehension, even fear, replaces the unchecked optimism Americans once felt, and they begin to search for reasons within themselves. The flapper never walked a picket line, but now, for the first time since suffrage and prohibition, the American woman finds her social conscience. Exclusive women's clubs discover that being frivolous is no longer fashionable. With unaccustomed earnestness, they take on the nation's problems. As individuals, they feel uneasy at having in an age of have-nots, and so they devote their time to good works and charity. They are symptomatic of a sobered America, searching pathetically but earnestly for an answer to the country's dilemma. Happy days are here again. The skies above are clear again. Franklin Delano Roosevelt rekindles America's optimism. In 1933, he launches both the first 100 days of the New Deal and the extraordinary career of Eleanor Roosevelt. Franklin knew that life would be very uninteresting to me, she says, if I didn't feel I was accomplishing something. She tours the nation on FDR's behalf, reporting to him on conditions she finds. And in her own way, she settled for American women in the 1930s. A generation of career girls will model themselves on the energetic image of the nation's First Lady. My work, she says, is an opportunity for living life as fully and deeply as I possibly can. After a particularly strenuous trip, a reporter assigned to cover Eleanor Roosevelt writes, "Please, make Eleanor tired, just for one day."
I christen you New York Flyer.
While Eleanor Roosevelt pioneers a new role as First Lady, other strong-minded women emerge as forceful representatives of their sex. Women as FDR's newly appointed Secretary of Labor, Frances Perkins.
Without high wage earner purchasing power in the United States, we cannot maintain business or industry or our population in the way in which American standards demand.
Margaret Sanger, outspoken advocate for birth control, offers her cure for the Depression.
Every working man knows that it is far better and easier to bring 2 children into the world and provide for them decently on the average wage of $35 a week than it is to have 8 or 10 children on the same wage.
Reporter Dorothy Thompson warns of the dangers brewing across the seas.
We've seen the entire structure of Europe start to topple down. And we've seen it collapse, not by the will or the decision of the peoples concerned, but on the order of a single man.
Emma Goldman, etching radical, airs her views as well.
I will leave the country rather than deny my ideas. I prefer to stick to my guns.
And then there is an arbiter of manners named Elsa Maxwell.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is John Keogh, the latest addition to New York society.
And New York society is cafe society. Gossip columns report on their antics, and a nation vicariously enjoys their exploits. Meetings are held at the Stork Club, Al Morocco, or Jack and Charlie's 21. Members are expected to have a flair for publicity, a knowledge of the Big Apple, and money. Lots of it. Doris Duke has it, $30 million, and a sense of independence. Barbara Hutton has it, and the self-assurance of the richest girl in the world. Standard bearer for Cafe Society is debutante Brenda Frazier, and her hijinks make headlines. She's queen of the season, catch of the year, and finally, the beaming known as Shipwreck. high life is a means of escape for 1% of the people. The other 99% go to the movies. In the bleakness of depression, Hollywood finds a market for nonsense set to music.
So we're in the money, look up, the skies are sunny. Old man depression, you want through, you've done us wrong. We never see a headline about red lines today. And when we see the landlord, we can look that guy right in the eye. We're in the money, come on, honey.
Movie queens of the 30s no longer project blatant sex, but worldly sophistication instead, in stars like Joan Blondell, Joan Crawford, Barbara Stanwyck, Greta Garbo, Claudette Colbert, Irene Dunn, Loretta Young. They are the goddesses of a fantasy world. But a determined young girl from Kansas more closely resembles the ideal of the American woman in the 1930s. Amelia Earhart is a bold, ambitious aviator whose exploits brightened the Depression for men and women alike. In 1931, she becomes the first woman to fly the Atlantic alone, and her tumultuous welcome spurs the eloquence of New York's Mayor Jimmy Walker.
You remember that some 5 years before you took off, when Colonel Lindbergh made his solo flight across the Atlantic and coined the aeronautical we, that it remained of the masculine gender, and it seems to me as if you have at last cleaned up that aeronautical we and taken the sex out of it.
Tripoli Essex Paraplane.
As a celebrity, Amelia Earhart uses her fame to promote the nation's interest in commercial aviation. In 1937, she announces planned around-the-world flights, and with her husband, publisher George Putnam, she takes a gentle poke at her own determination to succeed.
Well, how about taking me along?
Well, of course, I think a great deal of you, but 180 pounds of gasoline on a flight perhaps might be a little more valuable.
Yes, 180 pounds to 180 pounds of husband.
I think you guessed right.
Her ambitious flight is a brave gesture in an age that appreciates courage. But somewhere in the reaches, it will disappear. Her flight, in a way, marks the passing of an era for women, world. The 1930s are come close. The Depression is ending.